Part 36. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 351. Chapter 351. The king and his ministers go into a dog hole together. Sushui rushed back to Yan's house overnight. When I came back, I happened to meet Zhou coming to my door. Half an hour later, Sushui walked straight to the backyard. Come out quickly, don't pretend to be dead. If you don't come out, I will let him in. Sushui looked at Lianhua in a funny way. Sure enough, a wisp of smoke came out. Don't let him in. Ping An's face turned red, biting his lower lip and looking at Sushui. I didn't mean to pretend to be Sushui. I don't know how to explain it to him. I'm also afraid that he will be afraid of my identity. After all, she is just a wisp of soul. Humph, if he hadn't found me, I wouldn't have known about it. Am I still not the closest person to you? You actually hid it from me. Sushui muttered, feeling jealous. We are twin sisters, and no one is closer than us. Sushui felt very sad, as if her precious baby had been robbed. Yes, Zhou is not as good as the two of us. Ping An hurriedly coaxed her. Sushui grinned lightly. Did you know that Zhou came to propose marriage? Sushui looked at her jokingly. Ping An was stunned for a moment. I can't marry him. Ping An lowered his head and twisted his hands tightly together, showing the confusion inside. Sushui sat on the fence and swayed her little feet. Ping An, you like him? Sushui said it in a positive tone. I'll take you out. You are very resistant to the outside world. But you are willing to accept him. From Zhou mouth, Sushui knew that she had gone out with Zhou several times. Anan, what are you afraid of? Sushui was a little worried. Zhou Chongguan came to see me just now. He said that the Zhou family is looking forward to your joining. They have no objection at all. The look of peace changed. Zhou said, if you are not willing to marry him, he will never marry again in this life. He is willing to work hard for you. Anan, do you want to try to believe him? Anan, don't be afraid. Sushui is here. Sushui didn't know what she was worried about. But Anan has someone she likes, and she hopes that Anan can fall in love instead of being alone again. Sushui, if you and Fujuxiao don't reach the end, will you still marry him? Anan suddenly asked. Sushui smiled and narrowed her eyes. Why not? Even if we are my wife for just one day, it is proof that we are together. At least, I have no regrets. Ping An pursed his lips. No regrets, Ping An murmured in a low voice. Mother of Cai also said just now that if she doesn't dislike Ping An, she would like to adopt Ping An as her adopted daughter. She said that she is a distant relative of father. Ping An's cheeks are slightly red. Hey, if you can get married with me, then you have to embroider with me. No, brother Juxiao has already done the embroidery for me. Sushui looked stunned. Ping An glanced at her with a slightly blushing face. You thanked mother for me. After saying the word mother, she returned directly to the lotus. Little lotus, you are shy, he. Sushui joked with a smile. The lotus flower was swaying, and Sushui could almost think of her blushing cheeks. When Sushui returned to the front yard, Zhou was looking at her nervously. Sushui smiled and said, go back and prepare the betrothal gift. Well, our family has to prepare for the ancestral ceremony first. If you accept Ping An as your daughter, you have to write a family tree. Congratulations, mother, there is another girl. Ms. Lin narrowed her eyes when she heard this. Quickly clean up the yard next to Sushui and decorate it according to Sushui's boudoir. No, Ping An likes it differently. I will decorate it myself. Ms. Lin hurriedly ordered. Zhou was so happy that she almost trembled and took out her birth date from her arms. No, I have to come back to ask for marriage another day. I have to bring the wild geese, my parents. Zhou smiled like a fool, not half as smart as a top scholar. Zhou Ling ran away rolling and crawling. The second day, the Yan family opened an ancestral temple and adopted their adopted daughter. Ping An was able to appear calmly in the sun, wearing a pretty green dress, and she looked exactly like Sushui. Everyone was surprised, and there was some vague guess in their hearts, but they did not dare to make wild guesses. After all, it was too shocking. Everyone congratulated Mrs. Lin on the birth of her daughter. 3 days later, I even heard that the Zhou family came to ask for marriage. The whole city was shocked when he asked the 2 daughters who married Lin to be safe. I heard that 2 girls are getting married on the same day. One is marrying the emperor and the other is marrying the new champion Zhou Ling. Zhou Ling is also the eldest grandson of Shangshu Mansion. What kind of good fortune does Lin have? The eldest son is the champion, the second son is the of war, and is worshipped in the world, and the third son is the first assistant. The adopted eldest daughter marries the emperor, and the adopted daughter marries the champion. Mother, isn't Mrs. Lin's life very good? It is rare that everyone does not envy Sushui, nor does they envy peace. I actually envied Mr. Lin. The daughter of destiny is the Lin family. She was born as a peasant woman, but she actually changed her family name. Everyone went crazy with envy. Lin suddenly became the most envied person in Beijing. When Mrs. Lin learned about this, she was so shocked that she couldn't open her mouth from ear to ear. Madam, someone came to ask you to write a blessing word yesterday. By the way, there are people who come to ask for your used handkerchief and want to be happy. People in the government often receive requests like this, which makes Mrs. Lin helpless. She also ignored the rumors from the outside world and only guarded the 2 girls with her heart. Ping An, Mom has never taught you anything, but Mom is very happy that you can become her daughter. Mrs. Lin felt very sorry for her. This little girl was deprived of her identity at birth and was imprisoned for more than 10 years. Obviously, she is already the housewife of the house, and during this period she spends most of her time in the kitchen to nurse her 2 daughters back to health. Peace be with you, a woman is not allowed to see her fiancé before she gets married. Mom has found some needle and thread for you. During this period, you need to embroider some sachets, handkerchiefs, and hijabs. Mrs. Lin smiled and handed Ping An a basket of needle and thread. Sushui winked and asked her to take it. Turn around and ask Zhou Zhuangyuan to embroider it for you. After Lin walked away, Sushui whispered to Ping An. The imperial study room at this moment. Congratulations, Mr. Zhou, for bringing this beauty home some time ago. I don't know who was writing sour poems to me all day long. Fu Juxiao glanced at Zhou Ling, and he turned out to be his brother-in-law. Zhou Ling smiled and said nothing. Since getting engaged, he has settled down. After you get engaged, you can't see your fiancé anymore. Zhou Iking, can't you bear this little time? Fu Juxiao looked sarcastic. Of course you follow the rules. Why should you care about being in love for a while? We will get married next year, very soon, Zhou Ling said quietly. It's just that I have to rush back to the palace to discuss the wedding, so I can't stay in the palace for a long time. Fu Juxiao waved his hand, step back. I also have to talk to the visiting envoy. Half an hour later. Mr. Zhou is discussing marriage in the mansion. An emperor who is holding talks with envoys from neighboring countries. Meet in front of the same dog hole. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 352. Chapter 352, Twin Flowers. Why are you here together? Sushui was sitting in the yard, each holding a cup of milk tea with Ping An. The 2 of them were standing together, wearing exactly the same skirts and combing their hair. At this moment, everyone is looking at the dog hole with their heads tilted. As the emperor, Fu Juxiao was naturally the first to crawl into a dog hole. No one can get past this kind of treatment. Zhou Ling followed closely behind. The 2 of them were standing in the yard and were startled when they saw identical twins. Sushui and Ping An looked at each other, their lips pursed slightly, and their eyes were full of smiles. The two girls turned around. Can you tell us apart? Even the voice is deliberately lowered, making it sound exactly the same. Fujuxiao and Zhouling sighed helplessly, and they each stepped forward. Fujuxiao held the little the left, and Zhouling held the little the right. Naughty. Fujuxiao's voice was low and he pinched her cheek gently. Bah, spit out a pearl. Sushui glared at him and hurriedly took 2 more pills. How did you tell them apart? Sushui was very surprised. She looked in the mirror and saw that they were exactly the same as Ping'an. Zhouling blushed and looked at Ping'an, then secretly pulled Ping'an aside to chat. Fujuxiao glanced at her. Do you still need points? You two are obviously not different at all. Just standing there, you can tell them apart at a glance. What's different? They look exactly the same, smile exactly the same, and their voices are exactly the same. They're all dressed the same. Sushui was extremely curious, but Fujuxiao didn't want to tell her. Fujuxiao's eyes were full of smiles. He could recognize her at a glance among thousands of people, and he could also find her in countless reincarnations. Each time she had a different appearance, he never misidentified her. Even in the previous life, Yan Jiaojiao took over his identity. He never awakened his memory and power, and he never admitted his mistake. Fujuxiao saw her delicate and soft cuteness, so he only said something simple, well, when you smile, the corners of your lips are a little higher, and she is a little lighter. After you blink your eyes, you will look at the other person with a smile and a narrow look in your eyes. Every time you take a sip of milk tea, you will shake your head slightly, looking very happy. When you hold the milk tea, your index finger likes to tap the bottle. When you listen to gossip, your ears will stand up and your eyes will be particularly bright. When you enter the door, you like to step with your left foot first. When you eat, you like to eat meat first and then drink soup. You don't eat vegetarian food. Fujuxiao muttered a bunch of words in detail, all of which were Sushui's inadvertent little actions that she didn't even notice. Every look and smile is different. How could I not recognize my wife? He thought deeply about his wife for countless lives. Her soul is different. Sushui laughed softly. What if I follow the path of an animal in my next life? Fujuxiao's eyelids trembled. You can find it too. Besides, it's not like I haven't walked there before. I grind my teeth just thinking about it. He was actually thrown into the beast's path. Chaos, you are so good. The white cat squatting in the corner shivered suddenly, turned around and picked out a mouse from nowhere, and walked past Fujuxiao and Sushui in a high-profile manner. Hush, Fujuxiao to one side. Wow, Xiaobai is so powerful. Look, he caught a big mouse. I'll give you some chicken drumsticks tonight, Sushui said loudly. Fujuxiao gritted her teeth in hatred, but was helpless. Damn, this is so annoying. This chaos turned into a cat and still had a nest in the Yan family. Lin also adds chicken legs to it every day, and when the weather gets cold, she adds cotton to the nest. It's hot, so put a mat in the nest. And him, haha. He only has a dog hole. Fujuxiao felt a little sour in her heart. It's been so cold lately, Fujuxiao murmured in a low voice. Sushui tilted her head and thought, shall I fill the edge of your dog hole with some cotton? Fujuxiao immediately responded with a smile on his face. It's the new year again, and we're still half a year away from getting married. Fujuxiao was almost counting her fingers and looking forward to it day by day. We're still half a year away from getting married. Mom said I'm not allowed to eat too much lately, for fear that I won't look good when I get married. Sushui touched her belly and finished eating the melon seeds of both parrots. White Tiger has also finished eating his beef jerky. The White Tiger was so angry that he ran away from home. What do you want to eat? I'll cook it for you myself. Sushui hee-heed, I want to eat sweet and spicy chicken feet, braised lion's head, and sea cucumbers braised with green onions. Sushui took a sip of saliva. Fujixiao's craftsmanship was even better than that of the imperial chef. Half an hour later, the nanny Lin invited will come to teach. Fujixiao and Zhou Ling had to leave. Zhou Ling pointed to the dog hole. "You are my brother-in-law and your majesty. You crawl first, this is the dignity of the emperor." Fujixiao opened the hem of his clothes and was about to crawl out. He walked towards the cat's nest suddenly and took out all the cotton mats inside. Humph! Chaos! Then he crawled out of the dog hole without looking back. Zhou Ling followed closely behind. "There is a bulging bulge between the waist and abdomen, and I don't know what is stuffed there." After the two climbed out of the dog hole, Fujixiao looked at him seriously. "Zhou Iking, this man's dignity cannot be trampled upon by a woman. You must not lose the man's face. This woman should be pampered as much as she should be pampered, but don't spoil her. Look at me, she is grateful when I look at him. She never dares to refute anything I do. She doesn't dare not eat the food I cook for her. What about you? Do you have embroidery needles in your arms? Oh, grown man, how can the hand that holds the pen and the hand that points to the country be able to embroider? You should learn from me. I am a man. How can I allow her to interfere in what I do? You still have something to learn." Fujixiao looked like someone who had been through this before. As he was talking, he heard a shout from outside the wall. "Sweet and spicy chicken feet, less sweet and more spicy. The braised lion's head should be 30% fat and 70% thin, and it should be chewy. Don't make a mistake." Fujixiao hurriedly stepped on her feet and replied in a low voice, don't worry, I remember your taste." As soon as Fujixiao finished speaking, he found Zhou Ling looking at him with his arms folded. Fujixiao coughed lightly. "Did you see? She will eat whatever I do. This family, listen to me. How many handkerchiefs should I embroider? Are 2 pieces enough?" Zhou Ling asked abruptly. Before Fujixiao had time to respond, he said smoothly, "What are 2 pairs of enough? There are so many women in your family. Remember to embroider each one with your favorite pattern. It is best to add your last name on the corner to show that you are thoughtful." After saying this, Fujixiao became fierce. The ground shut up. Zhou Ling smiled and said, "Thank you for your experience, Your Majesty, I understand. I've never embroidered before, I heard what Sushui said." Fujixiao waved his hand. Zhou Ling narrowed her eyes. "Your Majesty, your embroidery skills are better than those of Wei Chen? You only have a few needle holes on your fingers." Fujixiao snorted softly and raised his head with a proud look on his face. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many memorials during the day and the eyes were dazzled at night, there wouldn't be any needles at all. "You're not bad either. If you don't let her embroider, she won't even dare to do needlework. It's you who have the final say in this family." Fujixiao nodded towards him. Zhou Ling was convinced. The 2 heads of the family were extremely satisfied with this. This company still makes the decision on its own. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 353. Chapter 353 The Wedding. Fujixiao's dog hole is gone. He pushed back the cat's nest of chaos. One day and night. It led Mrs. Lin to find the big dog hole and pulled away the straw outside. Mrs. Lin was shocked on the spot. It scared Lin into a cold sweat. Why is there such a big dog hole in the girls' courtyard? What should I do if something happens? Mrs. Lin was frightened for a while. Someone, come quickly, come and fill this dog hole. There are a lot of thieves in the first month of the year. What if you get into a girl's boudoir? Seal it quickly. Damn it, there is cotton in this dog hole. A dog must have made its home here. If I see it, I will break its legs, Lin said with anger. In more than 10 days, Her two daughters are about to have haircuts, and Ms. Lin cannot afford to be careless. The woman's reputation is so great, what should happen if something unexpected happens? When Sushui and Ping'an came out wearing clothes, several women in the yard had already blocked the hole. The best quality bricks are used, don't worry, girl, no one can get in, the mother-in-law was confirming with her. Sushui and Ping'an looked at each other, pursed their lips and smiled quietly. Sushui, you never noticed such a big dog hole in this courtyard. Xiaobai is the big hero today, so he must be given chicken legs for a month. Ms. Lin held the little white cat and stroked it gently. Sushui helplessly held her forehead, this little thing really holds a grudge. Yes, add chicken legs to it, add more. No, there are two pretty girls in our courtyard. Your sister-in-law is so beautiful, so we should hire more nursing staff to patrol outside the courtyard at all times. Ms. Lin thought for a while and hurriedly left with her mother-in-law. He turned around and added 10 guards outside the courtyard, patrolling at all times. Mom, who will climb your daughter's courtyard wall? Are you tired of living? Sushui's face was wrinkled. On the Lantern Festival when I was 12 years old, it was said that there was a disciple in the capital who specialized in going into girls' bedrooms. I don't know how many courtyards I drilled in a row. Later, he entered the Yan family. Goed into Sushui's bedroom. Later, when the government officials arrived, the other party cried and begged him to take him away. As for Yan Sushui's reputation? No harm, no loss at all. The only loss was that her beauty spread along with her ferocity. That's not possible, what if there is someone who can't open his eyes? Lin waved her hand and still let the guards patrol. Who else would climb the wall except those two blind sons-in-law? Sushui whispered in Ping'an's ear. Ping'an smiled so hard that he couldn't stand up straight. Sure enough. On the second day, Fujuxiao came to dig into the dog hole. Zhou Ling squatted in front of the dog hole with a bitter look on his face. Your Majesty, the dog hole is gone. I looked around and added 10 guards to patrol, and I almost got caught. Fujuxiao's eyes widened. Don't even think about other dog holes, even the mouse holes are blocked. Fujuxiao sat on the ground with a slumped expression, not bothering to move even when he heard the footsteps outside. There's still half a year left, what can we do? Your Majesty, hurry up, we won't be able to hide the fact that we climbed into the dog hole later. Zhou Ling dragged him along and trotted along. The two of them have a dog hole friendship, which is different from others. Your Majesty, I'll leave the Green Hills without worrying about having firewood, so you don't have to be too anxious. We're getting married soon, so we can always meet. Look at Wei Chen, he is much calmer. He is not worried about this matter at all. It's only 6 months and 3 days until the wedding, a mere 2,196 hours. Wei Chen is very calm and doesn't care about time at all, Zhou Ling advised earnestly. If you don't grit your teeth when you speak, I will believe you. Fujuxiao glanced at him, and Zhou Ling's teeth were chattering with anger. Zhou Ling looked at the wall with a stern expression, like a stone watching his wife. The two of them squatted on the street corner, looking at the Yan family's door and sighing. In order to make it easier to climb into the dog hole and not to be missed, the two of them even found themselves in rags. Who knows? 2 copper coins fell in front of me, falling to the ground whirling. Take it and buy some steamed buns to eat. You're a pity, you're out begging for food during the Chinese New Year. On the 6th day of the 6th lunar month, there will be a double wedding for the Yan family. Come early to ask for money and receive wedding cakes. If you are lucky, you can even see the bride. Fujuxiao and Zhou Ling looked at each other. Seeing the sedan chair of a court official passing by on the street, the two people hurriedly covered their faces and ran away. Hey, beggars, I haven't got the coins yet. Before they finished speaking, the two of them had already run away and disappeared. The two turned around and parted ways. The dog hole is gone, and so is the friendship. Since the dog cave was sealed, The emperor, who was always in high spirits, has also lost his temper. From time to time, I sigh together with the new champion. All the civil and military officials thought something had happened to Dai Viet, and they were always on tenterhooks. It wasn't until the wedding day came closer that the smiles of the two groom-to-bes appeared again, and no one knew the reason. Single dog. The big wedding is in 3 days, and I'm afraid someone will come to Xiaoshan tomorrow. The weather has been getting hotter these days, and Mrs. Lin has already rented the vacant courtyard around Yan's house. Xiaoshan's relatives were afraid that they would come over for a wedding banquet, so Mrs. Lin prepared it early. It's not even the official day of the wedding, but the entire capital has already taken on a completely new look. Red lanterns were hung up everywhere, and double happiness signs were posted on the door of every house. Even the treetops were hung with red ribbons. Floating in the wind, full of joy, Sushui casually picked a leaf from the peach tree, used her index finger as a pen, and used her spiritual power to write an invitation. Thinking for a while, he grabbed a large handful of wedding candies in the yard and sealed them in peach leaves. Blow on the green peach tree leaves, and the peach tree leaves turn into a paper crane, flapping its wings and flying towards the sky. Fly farther and higher, fly higher and higher. Sushui is getting married. You really don't want to come and see her? You are all Sushui's natal family, Sushui murmured in a low voice. Before he finished speaking, he heard the maid outside the door shouting hurriedly, "Second and eldest girls, uncle and aunt from the Lin family are here and are talking to madam in the front yard." Sushui's eyes lit up, and she led Ping'an to the front yard. She is about to get married and has less and less time to spend with her family. Sushui has been accompanying Lin for the past 6 months. Jing Chen, the reincarnation of the Buddha who lived next door to Sushui, raised his head and glanced at the sky. "A storm is coming, how long can you hold on? 1 year? 2 years?" In the palace at this moment, the courtiers were discussing matters in the imperial study. "Your Majesty, the grain tax in Vietnam is too low. It should be increased this year. We cannot empty the treasury and enrich the people," Mr. Fang said. Fu Juxiao nodded, "Yes, we can't stay alone in an empty house. I'm finally getting married." Mr. Fang hesitated. Mr. Lin smiled and said, "The grain tax has been reduced by 30%. It will benefit the people in the past few years." Fu Juxiao nodded, "Yes, we are getting married in 3 days." Mr. Lin's eyes twitched. Master Zhong smiled and said, "De Viet is happy to welcome the queen. This is a great joy." Fu Juxiao looked at him with a smile, "Yes, Mr. Zhong, is he married? Only when your wife and children are on the bed are you happy, your life will be full of progress. Mr. Zhong, don't give up on yourself." Master Zhong, who was cuckolded, nodded in despair. When everyone came out of the imperial study room, they all took a deep breath. Fu Juxiao walked out of the imperial study room and even the dog on the roadside was kicked. "Did you know, I'm getting married? From now on, I am a man with a family." End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 354. Chapter 354 Welcoming the Bride. Fu Juxiao is a strict wife. Even though he never showed anything, the whole world knew about it. The late emperor died, and he went to court every day to mourn. Every New Year, on the first day of the Lunar New Year, you have to report to the central government and rest for the next 3 days. And for his wedding, he gave the courtiers 7 days leave. That's all. To show his joy, he also reduced all taxes this year by 10%. Let the whole world be blessed with his joy. Hey, it would be great if your Majesty gets married every day with a 10% tax reduction, the people can keep a few more cents in their pockets. If he gets married every day, he won't be mauled to death by the queen. At this moment, Fu Juxiao was trying on wedding clothes in the palace, and the Queen Mother came over in a hurry. Have you ever taken Igea's words to heart? You doted on her too much. The Queen Mother frowned. Mother, I am very happy now. I really want to do some somersaults on the city wall. Fujuxiao arranged her wedding clothes in front of the bronze mirror. In the past 2 days, he chatted almost everywhere he met, and the courtiers were not willing to pay attention to him. The Queen Mother covered her face in disgust. Mother, I am going to take a wife. I'm going to marry Sushui. Mother, what great virtue do you think I have accumulated to marry Sushui? The Queen Mother only felt that her ears were calloused. Stop, 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 that's all, the AI family can't explain to you. You have to control yourself and don't do somersaults on the city wall. Our old Fu family can't afford to lose this person. The Queen Mother saw that he was so excited that she had to repeat admonished. She had never seen the Emperor so happy. When he ascended the throne, he had never been so happy. The Queen Mother left the sleeping chamber. The Emperor and the Empress are getting married tomorrow, and Fujuxiao was so happy that he didn't sleep all night. He simply took out the 3 realms link, switched to the underworld, and sent countless messages with a smile on his eyebrows. I'm getting married, how are you, who are lonely and cold in the netherworld? I have a wife to warm the bed. Then he switched to the God realm. I've been guarding your little cabbage for tens of thousands of years, and I finally got it. Switch to the fallen angel realm again. Congratulations on my wedding. Wearing brand new wedding clothes, Fujuxiao didn't sleep all night. The prince stood at the door of his dormitory and dozed off. Tonight, Sushui slept in the same room as Mr. Lin, Yan Pingping, and Xiao Xing Chen. Mom hasn't slept with Sushui for many years. In a blink of an eye, Sushui is going to get married. Mr. Lin sobbed, and Sushui leaned lightly on Ms. Lin's shoulder. Sushui will go home often to see her parents. Mom, you have to take care of yourself. Sushui gently rubbed Ms. Lin's eyebrows. Why? Why exactly? Why is there a thick black air between Lin's eyebrows? That's the air of death. The lingering air of death. Sushui squeezed Yan Xingchen's little hand. Xing Chen looked at her with a smile, and the lifeless look on the little girl's brows was slightly lighter. Sushui guessed that it might be because there was a touch of star power protecting her. Looking at Ping'an again, there is nothing unusual about Ping'an. The mother and daughter chatted until almost dawn before falling asleep. Sushui felt that she had taken a nap, and before she fell asleep, she was gently woken up by the nuns. The eldest girl and the second girl are happily married. Today is your special day, so you will miss the opportunity, so you have to get up early to dress up. 8 nuns were already standing by the bed with smiles on their faces. Lin had probably stayed up all night and had already made arrangements in the outer courtyard. When I opened my eyes today, everyone received a red envelope from Ms. Lin. Today there are 3 times the moon silver. Everyone is happy together. Everyone is happy and happy. The entire Yan family is busy in an orderly manner. Don't eat too much today, as it won't look good in wedding clothes later. If the ears are long, go out half an hour in advance. Safety is a child, and you go out half an hour later. There are differences between kings and ministers, so this is just the right thing to do. Sushui and Ping'an sat in front of the bronze mirror. They looked at each other and saw the smile in each other's eyes. Civil marriages were originally supposed to avoid the wedding day of the emperor and empress. But Ping'an is Sushui's biological sister, and the 2 of them are very close, which is actually a good thing. It hurts a little bit to open my face, please bear with me for a while, 11 Niang said with a smile. The 2 girls are so well kept their skin can be broken by a blow. I have never seen such delicate skin. 11 Niang opened a meeting for the 2 girls. Just comb your hair. 1 comb to the end, 2 combs to bring the white hair to eyebrow level, 3 combs to the whole house. To comb your hair, you originally wanted to invite the most noble person in the capital and the happiest person in life. But looking around, No one can compare with Lin. So Lin became the blessed person himself. Lin almost had tears in her eyes as she combed the hair of the two girls. "Madam, don't cry, today is a good day for the two girls. The two girls are marrying the most talented sons in the capital. You should be happy," Mammy hurriedly advised. Lin took a deep breath and wiped tears from her red eyes. "A happy day is a good thing, a good thing." Mrs. Lin said hurriedly. Several sons of the Yan family were busy in the outer courtyard. This wedding was almost the most prosperous event in Dai Viet. "The auspicious time is coming soon. Madam, please go and sit in the main hall. The two uncles are coming to pick up the bride. Logically speaking, Sushui is marrying the emperor. He will be sent to the palace, where he will offer sacrifices to heaven and worship under the witness of hundreds of officials." But Fujuxiao didn't want to treat Sushui lightly, he wanted to come out to pick up the bride himself. This also resulted in the Yan family being heavily guarded at the moment, and the people who came to watch the ceremony were almost all high-ranking officials in the court. A group of big guys didn't even have chairs, so they could only stand and watch. The sound of blowing and playing suana gradually came from the outer courtyard, almost deafening. Yan Chuan was the #1 scholar, so he naturally selected a group of talented colleagues to block the door. But Fujuxiao and Zhou Ling were both talented and learned, so they couldn't stop them for long. Not long after, I heard bustling sounds entering the inner courtyard. "Knock knock knock," Sushui heard a knock on the door. There was a squeak. Sushui wore a red hijab on her head. From the sound of footsteps, she knew the person was Fujuxiao. "Sushui, let me take you home." Fujuxiao's voice was a little soft, as if he was afraid of waking up everything. "I am deeply afraid that this is all a dream." Fujuxiao held Sushui's hand, and Zhou Ling waited outside the door at different times. Fujuxiao led her into the main hall to bid farewell to her parents. The moment her knees went down, Sushui felt as if some kind of shackles had been broken. Originally, she would neither kneel to the sky nor to the ground. But at this moment, it is against the rules to kneel down to give birth. Sushui is a little confused. "Have a good life, live a good life." Mrs. Lin tried not to cry, but her voice couldn't stop trembling. "Crying so hard that I could hardly utter a word." Yan Hansheng took a deep breath. Seeing that Mrs. Lin was unable to speak, he only said softly, "Although Sushui is not my biological daughter, she is better than my biological daughter. Live a good life, and if you get tired of it one day, please send her back. Don't do anything with her." Yan Hansheng patted Fujuxiao's shoulder lightly. Fujuxiao glanced at Sushui under the red hijab, with a slight smile on his eyebrows. "Father, mother, Juxiao will definitely guarantee Sushui with the head on his neck and will never let Sushui down. As for fighting Sushui, that won't happen." Yan Hansheng glanced at him, lowered his voice, bent down and said to him, "No, I mean, if you do it, she can probably twist off your head." Yan Hansheng had seen Sushui twist her head like a cucumber. It was pulled off as soon as it was pulled. Fujuxiao looked at him in shock. "Oh, this is my father-in-law's post-marriage speech." End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 355. Chapter 355. The Intertwining of Life and Death. The Emperor's Wedding. The whole world rejoices. The two said goodbye to their parents, and Zhou Ling followed closely behind, holding Ping An's hand. "This time, let my eldest brother carry you out." Yan Chuan is now able to stand alone in the court. Zhou Ji will take office next year, and Yan Chuan will be the new chief assistant. The youngest chief assistant in the history of Dai Viet. At this moment, Yan Chuan bent down with red eyes, and Sushui lay on his back. Yanming is 18 years old and has grown into a man. Half an hour later, he would carry Ping An and get married. Sushui lay on her elder brother's back, just like she did when she was a child. In my brother's eyes, you are still a child, but you are getting married. Back then, my brother took the imperial examination just so that you could have a backer, but now, I can't tell who is whose backer. His sister is the most powerful in the world. When you feel wronged, go home. My brother will always be waiting for you at home, Yanchuan whispered. Personally take her into the sedan chair. Sushui's eyes were reddish and she held Ruyi in her hand. Get up the sedan chair, 11 Niang shouted. The phoenix chariot was lifted up. Little city lord, we are here to see you off as a bride. The little city lord has been happily married for hundreds of years, and the wedding is auspicious. Little city lord, please remember to come home often, we have been waiting for you in Suaman City. Sushui's ears twitched slightly, and she suddenly heard a voice coming from the side of the road. She slightly lifted a corner of her red hijab and opened the curtain, only to see countless familiar faces in the crowd. It's the uncles and aunts. They are the people of Xiashan County. Sushui saw that they were dusty and tired. But because he was about to get married, he was very happy. It is now the hot summer, and they are afraid to leave their farm work in the fields and rush here in a hurry. Big and small bags, all are local specialties. We have watched the little city lord grow up with our own eyes, and we will definitely come to see you off in person. Don't be afraid, my mother-in-law is here. We are all your mother-in-law. Little city lord, don't be afraid, we will farm the land to feed you. Wherever the sedan was carried, the people of Xiashan County chased it. They were sweating profusely, their temples were soaked, and they were carrying thick packages. This was all brought by the people in the city. This is an extremely streamlined luggage, but it is still very large. Stop chasing, Lian Xingchen followed the sedan with tears in his eyes. The capital is huge, not to mention that the whole city is covered with red mats and hung with red lanterns. The sedan chair circled around the palace, and there were congratulations from people everywhere. All the wealth in the world belongs to the Yan family. It is indeed true. Behind the sedan chair was the dowry that had been distributed by the Lin family. Even if she is the queen in the palace, even if she is the mother of the world, she does not want others to look down upon Sushui. The sedan chair at the front has already entered the palace, and the dowry at the back has almost surrounded the entire imperial city. That's all. In Lin's shop and the shops on both sides of the road, dowries were still being carried out in a steady stream and flowing into the sea of people. The national treasury is not as rich as the little queen, right? Everyone looked at it in shock. What do you know, during the natural disasters a few years ago, Your Majesty even lent the little queen food, and it was only repaid last year. Your Majesty is definitely not as rich as her. Who is this chosen person who is richer than the national treasury? Hey, when others enter the palace, it is to consolidate the power of the family. When the little princess enters the palace to become the queen, it is a strong alliance. Everyone was amazed. What's even more amazing is Yan Sushui's public support. Countless people knelt on both sides of the road to see him off. As far as the eye could see, they were all kneeling people. We all came from the north and set out a month ago. The little princess not only lent food to Your Majesty, but she also emptied the grain depot in Xiashan County and provided disaster relief along the way. We all depend on the little princess to survive. We are from the south. We have accepted the kindness of the little princess and come here to see her off. A steady stream of people came from far away. Countless courtiers were alarmed and frightened by this scene. Your Majesty will only marry one person in this life, probably. Is correct. If the harem really has countless wives and concubines, I'm afraid the people will be dissatisfied. Until this moment, the Empress Dowager discovered that Yan Sushui was what the people wanted. Princess Wei was also standing on the wall of the palace at this moment, looking at the people, seeing off the people outside the palace gate, and looking at the Queen Mother. Mother, think about it, if Huiyi is as rich as the country, the eldest brother is the #1 scholar, the second brother is the god of war, and the third brother makes countless money for himself. The fiefdom has a steady stream of food and money, and the people are extremely close to my daughter. What you say, are you still willing to send your daughter to the palace? The Queen Mother paused. This is, all the pinnacles a person can reach in this life, right? What is the mother of a nation? Such a child, is no longer bound by anything. The Queen Mother suddenly felt that her son had taken advantage of him. Her son has a cold face and a cruel heart, and he doesn't know how to say nice things. He is busy with political affairs all day long, and he is several years older than Sushui. Alas! It means that the emperor's son is not worthy. Mother, it's time to go and offer sacrifices to heaven, Mammy whispered from behind. The Queen Mother nodded, and Princess Wei lowered her head and helped her down the city wall. Sushui was sent directly to Chengtian Hall. The Chengtian Hall is a place for sacrifices, and hundreds of civil and military officials are already waiting here. Fu Juxiao personally held her hand and walked step by step towards the high platform under the witness of everyone. The emperor and empress got married, and the rules were complicated. The two of them struggled for almost half an hour, but both of them smiled. Fu Juxiao's palms started to sweat a little. No one knows how many years he has been looking forward to this wedding. He coveted the treasures of the God realm and the little cabbages of the God realm. After tens of thousands of years, he finally achieved perfection. It's about to go up to heaven to hear. After completing the tedious process step by step, only the last emperor and empress were left to worship heaven and earth. The emperor of Dai Viet, Fu Juxiao. Queen of Daiyan Sushui. The two of them chanted in unison, and as soon as they finished speaking, their knees softened and they knelt in front of the altar. In front of the altar are placed all the utensils needed to worship heaven. It is sacred, heavy, and carries a certain majesty. All civil and military officials took advantage of the situation and knelt down. As soon as he finished speaking, a loud roar suddenly appeared from the horizon. Thunder in the day. A thunder struck almost from the sky, and a white lightning flashed across the sky, almost spanning the entire sky. It makes people's scalp numb. Sushui felt something pull away from her body, and she frowned slightly. Her strength was actually weakening. A breeze lifted her red hijab, and she stared at the sky. The sky seemed to be blocked by something, and she could not see the situation in the divine world. Everyone was shocked by this thunder. While I was thinking wildly, "Look, what is that?" I saw a golden light breaking through the dark clouds and falling on Sushui little by little. In one breath, flowers bloom all over the city. Fu Juxiao held Sushui's hand tightly. With his thick eyebrows furrowed, he knew that this was God's blessing to Sushui. What makes Sushui even more shocked is that this time, in front of everyone, saw the deathly aura. The death energy soaring into the sky, covering everything. Shocking. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 356. Chapter 356. The death knell rings. Red and black were intertwined, and Sushui took a slight breath. What's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere? Fu Juxiao intertwined his fingers with hers, paying attention to her every move. Sushui shook her head slightly. The ceremony of the emperor and empress is completed. The master of ceremonies sang loudly. All the civil and military officials paid their respects and said, "Queen, your majesty, Jinan." The two stood in front of the altar, worshipped heaven and earth, and worshipped their ancestors. Under the witness of all people, they became a real couple. Fu Juxiao personally pulled her, with a smile on his lips, and entered the dormitory with her. The bright red candle made a crackling sound, and Sushui sat on the dragon bed. Red dates, longans and other objects are scattered under the bed sheets, which symbolizes the early birth of a child. Sushui sat on the wedding bed with her head lowered. She felt Fujuxiao approaching step by step, and suddenly felt a little nervous in her heart. The two hands are gently intertwined, and the tips of the ears are reddish. Fujuxiao took a deep breath and backed away from the people in the palace. There was silence in the palace. Everything today made him feel like he was in a dream. There is a kind of unreal dream. He has no respect for heaven and earth, and does not believe in any gods. But at this moment, he prayed almost devoutly to the gods and Buddhas to let Sushui stay by his side. Fujuxiao's palms trembled slightly. This was the girl he had missed for thousands of years. He gently lifted the red hijab. Under the red hijab, Sushui's eyes were clear and a little shy. At this moment, Fujuxiao's heart, which had been in turmoil for several years, finally settled down. Fallen angel, from the day he missed Sushui, he was a fallen angel. Fujuxiao waved lightly, and the red candle that flickered on and off made a popping sound. The sudden destruction. Hongluan Zhangnuan is a charming room. The body and mind overlap, and the girl's suppressed and shy moans are scattered in the night. The entire mortal world reflects a festive red. No one knows that above the clouds, there is another flash of swords and shadows. The sky was slightly bright, and Sushui felt sore all over. Opened his eyes slightly, and the emotion in his eyes faded a little. But the man holding her in his arms looked at her emotionally. Sushui wrinkled her face slightly. Last night, her voice became mute. Fujuxiao struggled 2 or 3 times, and finally Sushui almost cried, and someone carefully coaxed her to sleep. Finally, I took 2 cold showers and kept my eyes open until dawn. Why don't you sleep a little longer? Fujuxiao's voice was still low and hoarse, and he gently tucked her in the quilt. Don't worry about the morning. Knowing that I'm getting married, I deliberately took 7 days off. Fujuxiao raised his eyebrows and overestimated his self-control. He should take at least a month off. The spring night is short and the sun is rising. I only regret that the king does not go to court early. Hey, it turns out that being a faint king is such a happy thing. Sui Swibei bit her lower lip lightly and gave him a slight push. What nonsense are you talking about? Then am I not that kind of evildoer who has brought disaster to the country? He glared at him angrily. The girl was new to human affairs, and there was a hint of unconscious shyness in her eyebrows. Fujuxiao hissed softly. He almost forced his eyes away from her lips. Fujuxiao pursed her lips and suppressed the darkness in her eyes. Don't let the little girl know his urgent thoughts, so as not to frighten the soft little white sheep. Let's go and say hello to our mother first. Sushui narrowed her eyes and arched her eyebrows with a smile. Fujuxiao's eyes fell on her fair and tender skin. There were large red marks on her skin, and Fujuxiao's eyes darkened. Sushui hurriedly pulled the collar together. Let me help you get dressed. Without Fujuxiao's voice, the palace people did not dare to come in. Sushui's body ached, but she couldn't resist him, so she had to give up. When dressing, you will naturally look more charming. After waiting for half an hour, the queen got dressed and went out. However, the little queen's face was flushed and her eyes were moist. Sushui's eyes fell between the palace maid's brows. She pursed her lips slightly and said nothing. Just looked at Fujuxiao and smiled with his eyes narrowed. The two of them had some breakfast together and then went to the Queen Mother's palace hand in hand. Sudden. Sushui paused. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something. Did you hear anything? Fujuxiao was stunned. Even though his spiritual power was running, he never heard anything strange. Maybe I heard it wrong. Sushui looked up at the sky, her eyes deep. She seemed to hear the trumpets blowing, the war drums beating, and the gods singing. Sushui's eyes swept across all the attendants. Everyone's faces were filled with death, but there was no sign of death on her face. Sushui, Do you know what my wish has been from the day I became conscious? Fujuxiao held her hand and walked forward with her fingers intertwined. It is a very evil who interferes with things, a supreme, ruthless and desireless God. Sushui, do you have a wish? Fujuxiao lowered his head and looked at her seriously. Sushui frowned for a moment, then shook her head. Everything you wish for in your life will be achieved. If I say my only wish, I'll give you a lifetime of marriage. Sushui pondered for a moment, and the vague voice drifted away with the breeze, and Fujuxiao didn't hear it clearly. Just at this moment, I arrived at the Queen Mother's bedroom, and my mother-in-law was already waiting in front of the hall. Everyone bowed with great ceremony and surrounded the Emperor and Empress into the main hall. The two of them, being served by the palace servants, knelt on the futon and drank the tea served to them. Everything went well and smoothly. The Queen Mother's eyes were extremely kind. I will give birth to an heir for the royal family earlier and extend my bloodline. My dear family, I will be satisfied in this life. The Queen Mother was so happy that she didn't have any objections. Sushui glanced at Fujuxiao shyly, but Fujuxiao was very interested. The two of them had lunch with the Queen Mother. In the afternoon, he accepted the worship of hundreds of officials. Sushui's eyes fell on everyone's eyebrows and she nodded lightly, but she said nothing. But she understands everything. The Emperor and Empress are overjoyed, which is a great blessing for Vietnam. God will definitely protect the people of Greater Vietnam and ensure its continued prosperity. All the ministers were full of joy. Yan Chuan, however, looked at his sister steadily and felt that something was different about her. But I can't tell what's different. It's like, the high and ethereal spirit, the mist that could fly away at any time, suddenly dispersed a lot. The human world is filled with joy, but the divine world is filled with war. 9 heavens. Come on, Sushui is getting married, I can't ruin her happy event, all the gods are coming with me. The barrier of the 3 realms can't last much longer. Today, it's up to me to strengthen the barrier. Jingyuan glanced at the mortal world, as if he could see the grand event below through the thick clouds. In his sleeve lay an intact and extremely precious wedding candy. Under the lamentations of all the gods, Jingyuan, god of war, turned into dots of starlight and sank into the barrier. The faintly broken barrier was repaired instantly, but outside the barrier, countless void beasts were attacking. How long can it be blocked? The death knell resounds through the sky. Sushui stood on the city wall, listening to the faint mourning and bells. Did you hear the death knell? Did someone die? She asked the man beside her. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 357. Chapter 357 Destiny. Fujuxiao listened attentively. The bell, there was a trace of worry in Fujuxiao's eyes. Perhaps, it's the bell that tells the time in the capital. There is a bell tower in the capital that rings every hour to tell the time. Sushui stood on the city wall, her fair face slightly condensed. Perhaps I heard the mistake. Sushui looked up at the sky, which was all blue, but she couldn't feel the breath coming from the sky and the earth at all. She just clearly heard the bell ringing, 6 times. There is a death knell in the divine world, which will sound when the in the main temple disappears between heaven and earth. Whenever the divine king of the heaven disappears, there will be several sounds. Fujuxiao gently held Sushui's waist and got off the city wall. In the past few days, Sushui has been receiving wedding gifts from people every day. It wasn't anything special, it was all food that the family couldn't bear to eat, so everyone put it at the entrance of the palace. Mother, this is this year's new rice. We all know that you are not in short supply, but we still send it to you to try, Auntie said with a low smile. Each household grabs a handful and puts it in a bag. Let's cook the rest and share it together, Sushui said with a smile. Every handful of rice represents a family's thoughts. Wanjiamai is of great significance. On the 3rd day of the wedding, Fujuxiao personally accompanied Sushui back to Yan's house. After returning home 3 times, he gave Sushui every dignity. In the past 7 days, Fujuxiao spent almost half of his time in bed. "Your Majesty, it's time to go to court." The prince stood outside the palace with a sad face. No one in the palace dared to come forward, so they had to ask the prince to pick up the hard work. The civil and military officials of the entire dynasty are waiting. Fujuxiao murmured in a muffled voice, hugging Sushui's waist and burying his whole body between her neck. "Every breath is the breath of Sui Sui." Sushui felt sore all over and pushed him slightly, but he didn't push him. "If you let me be a witch who brings disaster to the country, I will hang you upside down on the city wall." Sushui glanced at him, and Fujuxiao looked at her with a grieved face. There was a clang sound. The door to the bedroom is opened. Before the prince could react, he saw His Majesty being kicked out. The prince quickly looked up at the sky, as if he saw nothing. Fujuxiao coughed lightly and put on the dragon robe outside the door. "Are you all here?" Fujuxiao asked smoothly while the prince was helping His Majesty adjust his clothes. Fujuxiao was a strict emperor. He took 1 day off every year for 3 years after taking office. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, the courtiers had to go to the palace in the morning to pay New Year greetings before they could take a day off. Later, the courtiers made a big fuss and changed the New Year's holiday to 3 days. He now really wants to slap himself in the face. Master Zhou Ling has asked for leave. He said he had a cold, so he will ask for 3 more days. Fujuxiao was so angry that he gritted his teeth. They are both newlyweds, and he has to get up to go to court. Zhou Ling actually wants to live a sweet and happy life. Bah! Let someone invite Mr. Zhou into the palace and bring the imperial doctor with him. If he feels uncomfortable, treat him. Fujuxiao felt sour in her heart. "I can't survive the world of 2 people, so don't even think about it. Send the order to modify the holiday days. It's too hard to take 3 days rest every year. I am grateful that the courtiers are getting older, and I feel uneasy. From today on, we will take 2 days off every 5 days. In addition, we will take 1 day off for Mid-Autumn Festival, Dragon Boat Festival and other festivals. We will take 3 days off on the death anniversary of the late emperor. We will take 7 days off to celebrate the new year with the people. The wedding of the emperor and empress deserves to be celebrated together. For the time being, let's take 3 days off," Fujuxiao said calmly. The prince looked at him in astonishment. Last time the New Year's holiday was changed to 3 days, an old minister was so tired that he vomited blood in exchange for it. Fujuxiao has always hated the late emperor, but until now, he was grateful. Because the death anniversary of the late emperor is in July, I will be able to take a bath again soon. The courtiers will definitely be happy. The prince glanced at His Majesty. He was looking for a wife in an upright manner. In his position, he plans his affairs. Even though Fujuxiao missed Sushui, he forced his mind to political affairs. When Sushui got up, Fujuxiao had already had breakfast delivered. He was discussing matters with the courtiers in the imperial study. "Your Majesty, let me help you massage your body. I see that you are a little tired," the palace man said in a low voice. Sui Sui agreed, and after pressing the button for half an hour, she felt her body relaxed a little faster, and then she went to the Queen Mother's chamber. The Queen is blessed, everyone is in awe of the Queen. Who knows, His Majesty loves her to the core. The old grandma was already waiting at the entrance of the palace. "It's hot, why don't you come here in the phoenix chariot?" she hurriedly asked someone to fan Sushui. "It's okay, let's take a walk to feel more comfortable." Before Sushui entered, she heard a burst of crying coming from the Queen's hall. Grandma is a little embarrassed. It's Miss Shen Aoxiu, the niece of the Queen Mother. She was proposed to marry by the Queen Mother 2 years ago, and now the couple is having conflicts. Mammy sighed. He secretly glanced at the Queen. Actually, After all, Shen Aoxu never let go of his majesty. Shen Aoxu's father passed away early, and the Queen Mother suffered from partial pain on weekdays. The marriage was granted by the Queen Mother, and the other party was a promising young man. He was the second best in Zhou Ling's class. He was handsome and talented. It's a pity that Shen Aoxu is not satisfied and behaves like a monster in the house several times. You just love Yan Sushui, is she your niece, or is Aoxu your niece? Shen Aoxu suddenly shouted loudly. As soon as the words came out, there was a snap. Get out of the Igia will no longer have a niece like you. You are an ungrateful person, but you are trying too hard to marry Tanhua. You are not satisfied yet. Tanhua is good-looking and talented, and her parents are very good-tempered people. Is that the person Aoxu wants to marry? You know who Aoxu wants to marry, but you just favor her. Shen Aoxu burst into tears. She has been determined to marry the prince since she was a child, and has always treated herself as a princess. If she is the queen, can others still be concubines? She is so jealous, how can you accept her? What should the emperor of Dai Viet do? Shen Aoxu pursed her lips tightly, and the nun outside the door glanced at the empress in embarrassment. The queen mother chuckled lightly. What does it have to do with you? Sushui became the queen, and everyone expected her to return. It was Juxiao who climbed up to her. If he marries a concubine, he will be struck by lightning, and he will die badly. If Fu Juxiao married a concubine, the queen mother would despise him. Simply ungrateful. Shen Aoxu was stunned. It seems that the queen mother did not expect such an attitude. Take her sign and don't enter the palace again unless summoned. If you want to live a good life, then live it. If you don't want to, just make peace with yourself. The AI family now has a daughter-in-law. What do I have to do with you? Here the queen mother waved her hand. Shen Aoxu looked broken, but no matter how much she begged, the queen mother would not pay attention to her anymore. He was forcefully dragged down by the palace guards. Seeing Yan Sushui standing outside the door with her hands behind her back, Shen Aoxu screamed repeatedly. Who would have thought that the position that she had been thinking about would actually fall to on the 3-year-old baby that she dismissed with disdain. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 358. Chapter 358 Fainting. What are you doing standing outside the door? Beware of the heat, the queen mother hurriedly called Sushui in. Don't take Shen Aoxu's words to heart. The emperor has no objections, and the AI family has no objections either. You too can live your life on your own. The queen mother's brows were gentle, and she gently held Sushui's hand. Joy. Ouch, her prince is really worse than a beast. Sushui, who was just that old at the time, was already on his radar back then. Mother. Sushui called out obediently. The queen mother hurriedly sighed. Hui Yi has a calm temperament and doesn't like to act coquettishly. Sushui is simply her ideal girl. If the emperor bullies you, you come to the AI family, and the AI family will make the decision for you. But don't take it. The queen mother took pity on her tightness. No wonder Mrs. Lin likes this girl. If it were her, she would like her too. It's so soft that it makes me feel bad to see it. Fu Juxiao never came back until lunchtime. Your Majesty, haven't you finished your work yet? The queen mother has already ordered lunch to be served. Mammy sighed. The royal study just sent the news. Before your Majesty even left the imperial study, there was a sudden call from Bailey. There was a sudden earthquake in the north. The ground shook overnight. Countless houses collapsed and countless people were drowned. Your Majesty hastily summoned all the ministers to the palace. I'm afraid it will be another sleepless night. The queen mother was suddenly startled. The beads in his hands paused for a moment. Earthquake. Mammy nodded in agreement. Snapped. The teacup in Sushui's hand fell to the ground. I'm scaring the queen. Don't be afraid, your majesty will take care of it. Mammy hurriedly sent someone to take away the broken teacup. That's all, let's change lunch to a vegetarian meal. Could you please Sushui to accompany this old lady from the AI family to eat fast and pray to Buddha? The queen mother took Sushui's hand. Why are your hands so cold in the summer? But the ice basin in the palace is too cool. The queen mother had two people removed. Sushui smiled, maybe I didn't sleep well at night and was a little cold. After lunch, let the queen mother have a safe pulse at the imperial hospital. The queen mother was a little worried. Mammy responded hurriedly. The food for lunch was tasteless. After the queen mother finished it, she went directly to the small Buddhist hall to pray for Dai Viet. Sushui walked in the palace and heard the palace people comforting her. My dear, you don't have to worry. There have been frequent natural disasters in the past few years, and your majesty has dealt with them very well. Everything will be fine. Sushui's mouth was cracked, but she couldn't smile. It's really strange. On the day of your majesty's wedding, the city was full of flowers. Why, in the past 2 days, the garden has begun to deteriorate. The palace servant originally wanted to pick a few flowers and put them in the vase, but they all bloomed. It was as if the spiritual energy was suddenly cut off. This time, Fujuxiao didn't come back until late at night. When I came back, I was tired and Sushui was sitting under the window waiting. Sushui, why are you still waiting for me? Fujuxiao frowned and hurriedly stepped forward to hold Sushui's hand. Sure enough, it's a little cold. While discussing state affairs, he specially asked Sushui to take a rest early. Fujuxiao felt a little distressed. Sushui smiled and took out a bowl of sweet soup that was warmed by the small stove on the table. Drink it while it's hot to get rid of the heat. Licorice is added to it. Sushui smiled. Fujuxiao picked up the small spoon, 1 spoon for you and 1 for me, and they drank a bowl together. Fujuxiao held her cold little hand and warmed her. He knew what Sushui was worried about. Don't worry, Sushui. I've asked clearly. The earthquake happens to be in summer, and it's during the day, so most of the people are out doing things. The casualties are not big, but the property is a small matter. I have sent Mr. Xie to it personally. The property went over to support. Don't worry, the people are fine. Sushui's eyes trembled slightly, and she breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. What more can a husband ask for when he marries a wife like this? Fujuxiao hugged her gently. As soon as I lowered my head, I found many green leaves on the ground. At a rough look, there are probably dozens of pieces, which is quite a pile. Fujuxiao bent down to pick up the leaves on the ground, and saw that there were still a few intact leaves on the table. Have you folded anything with leaves? Let me see. What took Sushui so long to fold? Fujuxiao smiled and picked up the leaves, folding them along the traces. Then I saw a tattered blue paper crane. Idiot, how can you make an origami crane when the leaves are so tender and break when folded? Fujuxiao ruffled her hair. Just fold it and play. Sushui picked up the leaves on the table and gently crushed them. If you like it, how about I help you fold some paper cranes after you finish your work? Sushui smiled and narrowed her eyes. Okay. She glanced at the broken green leaves on the ground, her eyes a little dim. Fujuxiao is really busy these days. The earthquake has not yet been resolved, and the sudden floods in the south have been causing trouble for some time. Fujuxiao lost a lot of weight without knowing it. After having been busy for a while, I have already walked from Xia to East, and it is already the end of the year. This year was not peaceful, so Fujuxiao personally took Sushui to preside over a sacrificial ceremony at the sacrificial platform outside the palace. Pray for good weather in the coming year. It's not just Dai Viet. There was a sudden drought in the Buddhist country, and a plague broke out in the Shenyuan dynasty. All countries had some problems. Fortunately, everything is under control. At the palace banquet on New Year's Eve, Sushui specially summoned the Lin family. It is said that he is already married to his wife. The third aunt is slightly plump, but still has the coquettishness of a girl. The cheeks are round, and even the eyes are round and clear. At first glance, she looks like a simple-minded girl. Yan Ming has been deeply interested in doing business since he was a child. He has seen a lot of intrigues, but he loves his charming and naive wife very much. Yan Ping'an sat in front of the old lady of the Zhou family, with a warm smile on his eyebrows. After the palace banquet, Sushui called a few people to meet. "What do you think? Why don't you want to do the family tree last week?" he asked while holding Ping'an's hand. "You are his wife who has been married to a matchmaker and has been witnessed by heaven and earth. How can you not be included in the family tree?" Sushui was a little puzzled. "Sister, Ping'an has her own ideas." "Well, you will know later." Ping'an coaxed her coquettishly. She usually has a calm temperament, but after getting married, she became a little more arrogant. It can be seen that the Zhou family treats her very well. "You're not still thinking about marrying him a wife and having children, are you? Since the Zhou family has accepted you, they will never marry anyone else." Sushui glanced at her, and Yan Ping'an grinned. "Say. Only the first wife needs to be listed in the genealogy, and the stepwives cannot be listed in the family tree. Unless the wife voluntarily refuses to go. Sushui, try this. You have liked your mother's food since you were a child, and your mother got up early this morning and was busy with work. She brought it to the palace specially, for fear that it would not taste good if it gets cold." You smiled and picked up a food box. As soon as the food box was opened, the fruity aroma of pineapple meat was revealed. Bright color, oily and delicious. It's still warm. You liked this the most when you were a child. Mom was afraid that you would be homesick, so she brought it to you. You just served it to Sushui. Sushui was originally happy, but when she smelled it, her expression suddenly changed. Sushui felt a surge of sour water and retched violently. This reaction shocked everyone. Sushui's reaction came quickly and urgently. Before he even had time to react, his body softened and he fell straight to the ground. "Send a message to the imperial doctor quickly." Ms. Lin was so frightened that she shouted with red eyes. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 359. Chapter 359 Pregnancy. Fujuxiao almost stumbled down from the palace banquet. The director of Tai Hospital happened to be attending the palace banquet today. With a glass of wine still in his hand, he saw the emperor striding over. He directly carried him on his shoulders and rushed out of the banquet. Your Majesty, I will leave," the old dean shouted heartbreakingly. Fujuxiao heard Sushui fainting and her breath was slightly confused. At this moment, she said in a solemn voice, "You are walking too slowly. I will carry you over." The little medicine boy carried the medicine box on his back and couldn't catch up with him as he trotted all the way. When Fujuxiao came in, Sushui was already lying on the bed. Ms. Lin anxiously walked around the hall, her eyes red. Yan Ping'an sat beside the bed and held her hand tightly. "Sister," she murmured in a low voice. "The imperial doctor is here." The palace man hurriedly opened the door. Fujuxiao's heart sank immediately when he saw Sushui's pale face. Ms. Lin looked at Sushui worriedly. She didn't know what was going on, but Sushui always made her feel uneasy. Having been married for half a year, she seems very happy, but Sushui has lost a lot of weight. The slightly rounded chin is now pointed. The old dean felt sore all over his body, but seeing the queen lying pale on the dragon bed, he didn't dare to linger. Immediately waved my hands to keep everyone quiet. He knelt quietly in front of the dragon bed and checked his pulse. The old dean's frown relaxed. A flash of confusion and ecstasy flashed in his eyes. Your Majesty is very happy, the greater the joy, it's the dragon vein. The old dean immediately kowtowed to His Majesty and shouted loudly. Your Majesty is happy, Vietnam is blessed. It's just that the month is still shallow. It's only more than a month now, so it's not stable yet. It just so happened that today's palace banquet caused morning sickness. It will be much easier for me to get through the first 3 months after I prescribe a few medicinal recipes. The old dean prescribes a few prescriptions and hands them to the palace attendant. As soon as Fujuxiao came in, Ping'an lowered his head and retreated to an inconspicuous corner. Speaking of which, she and Fujuxiao almost never met face to face. When Sushui opened her eyes, she saw Lin and Fujuxiao looking at her with worried faces. You silly boy, why did you forget that your menstrual period was delayed? Lin's face was filled with worry. In her eyes, Sushui always comes first. The palace officials have recorded it. In fact, it only lasted a few days. I originally wanted to ask the imperial doctor to come and have a look after the new year. After all, I only asked for Ping'an Mei half a month ago, and I never thought about it. You used to be able to tell when others were pregnant, but now you have forgotten about yourself. Lin gave her an angry look. Sushui pursed her lips and just smiled without saying anything. Fujuxiao just looked at her intently. Pregnancy is so hard, why not let's not give up? As soon as Fujuxiao spoke, everyone looked at him in shock. As for the throne, we just need to choose a child from the clan to adopt him. Pregnancy is hard, it's so difficult. Fujuxiao's brows were filled with distress. He was not being polite, he really had this idea. Sushui turned pale as soon as she got pregnant. Compared with his son, he felt sorry for Sushui. What are you talking about? I feel relieved when your child is with you. Sushui smiled and seemed to notice something strange as soon as she spoke, so she added another sentence. My marriage to you in this life will only be complete if I have a child. Fujuxiao frowned. What nonsense are you talking about? It's serious if you stay with me. It's perfect with you. It sounds unlucky to have a child with you to feel at ease. The child is proof of our love. I want to keep it. Sushui muttered and looked at him. The veterans who were chasing after him were all excited. Your Majesty is full of rebelliousness. Fujuxiao pondered for a moment. If the fetus is too much trouble for you, it will probably be careless about your mother, so you won't be able to keep it. Sushui touched her belly and said, Little one, you have to be good. The old dean glanced at the Empress and swallowed the unfinished words. The moon is light now, so I can't see it clearly for the time being. It will be clear in another half month. The queen is happy on the first day of the Lunar New Year, and she is even more happy. When Fujuxiao was happy, everyone in the palace received rewards. Sushui can't smell greasy now. Fortunately, the medicinal food left by the old dean is refreshing, so she can eat half a bowl. It's just that his face is still not good looking. Ms. Lin was worried and stayed until night. After everyone left, Ms. Lin sighed and said, When you were a child, you liked to eat the tender green vegetables I pickled the most. Take a spoonful of lard and fry them. It is very delicious to eat with rice. I'll pickle some when I get home. It'll be ready to eat in about 7 days. Look at your thin face. Ms. Lin felt extremely distressed. Sushui is waiting for her mother's pickled vegetables. Just thinking about it makes her mouth water. The two of them still refer to each other as mothers in private and are very close to each other. The Yan family has developed in recent years, and many things no longer require Lin's own hands. Sauerkraut has not been pickled for a long time. I haven't had it in many years, and I'm missing this bite. Sushui leaned on Lin's shoulder, just like she did when she was a child. In a blink of an eye, you will become a mother. Oh, let's count the days. I'm afraid you will give birth to Lina in October. It will be winter and it will be cold. I have to make a little cotton padded coat and little cotton padded shoes. Children, they grow when they see the wind. They grow very fast, so you need to be prepared. Mrs. Lin muttered to herself. Mom, it's too early. It's only been a month. Besides, the Ministry of Internal Affairs will prepare it, so don't hurt your eyes. Sushui couldn't help laughing. You are still young. It is the duty of the Ministry of Internal Affairs to prepare it for you. But it is different for your parents to prepare it for you. Last time, the people sent a lot of rice and cloth, and my mother made hundreds of clothes for you. In the future, the child will be able to eat porridge and boil it into hundreds of rice. It will be easy to feed the child. Under the oil lamp, Sushui looked at Lin's face and felt a warmth. Mom, will you take good care of my children in the future? Sushui asked casually. Idiot, what nonsense are you talking about? You are my biological daughter, and the child is my biological grandson. If your mother doesn't take care of you, who will? Mrs. Lin was filled with joy and didn't think much about it. You, take good care of yourself after giving birth. If you have a mother to look after you, a nanny or something like that, how can you care about your own grandmother? Juxiao, you are someone worth trusting for the rest of your life. Mrs. Lin felt reassured. Mr. Lin didn't leave the palace until night. She didn't stop at all when she got home and took the jar directly. Choose the freshest green vegetables and pickle 2 jars of sauerkraut. Pick some pickled cabbage, pickled radish, and some pickled green vegetables. Add some sugar to enhance the freshness. This freshly pickled cabbage is sweet and sour. If you fry it with oil residue, you can eat 2 bowls of rice. Lin was busy until midnight. We have never tasted my mother's pickle skills, so we are lucky to have Sushui. Both daughters-in-law smiled and helped. As he was speaking, he could hear the human voice. Madam, there is something strange about the lotus pond in our backyard. The lotus in Yan's backyard is a strange sight in the capital. The flowers bloom every year, and the flowers bloom unfailingly. It has been nearly 10 years now. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 360. Chapter 360. Flowers bloom and give birth to twins. Lin paused. Since the Yan family moved in, Sushui moved this lotus plant here. Later she also understood that this was the essence of peace. She is now attached to this lotus. Obviously I only had one lotus plant, but that one plant directly bred a whole pond of lotus flowers. All year round, the Yan family lotus pond is always in bloom. It is now a wonder in the capital. But the Yan family was very strict, and there were often noble people who wanted to come to the Yan family to hold a lotus appreciation party, but the Yan family never opened their mouths and just declined with a smile. The government also explicitly prohibited lotus picking. The entire Yan family has a fresh lotus fragrance all year round, and over time everyone got used to it. Even the taste is so refreshing that it is a very good thing. Mr. Lin put down what she was busy doing and immediately headed towards the lotus pond. Look. Ever since you gave the order, the lotus pond has been guarded every day. No outsiders have come to cause trouble. But the lotus pond seems to be withering faintly. Mrs. Lin personally held the lamp and walked in front. Since she couldn't see clearly at night, she asked people to light the lanterns around her. Only then did I realize that there was a circle of withered leaves on the lotus leaves. Lin checked around and found nothing unusual except withering. She looked at each other with her 2 daughters-in-law before returning to the room. It's strange, it's still not withered in the morning. Lin was a little suspicious. Why don't you send someone to Zhou's house to ask for safety? Don't let anything happen. Susu was a little worried. It didn't look strange during the palace banquet. You frowned. It's late at night just to scare the Zhou family, and it's only an hour before dawn. My daughter-in-law ordered us to go down first, and when the Zhou family opens the door, we'll go find out. Mother, you haven't rested all day, so take a nap first. I'll tell you the news when I get back. You knew that she wouldn't be able to sleep well if she didn't hear it, so she didn't try to persuade her. Lynn nodded and didn't wash up. She just squinted on the bed for a while. As soon as it got dark, the news came back. What's the matter, Mrs. Lynn was getting older after all, and her brows looked a little tired. Hearing a slight noise, he opened his eyes. Ah, you came in with a smile, Mother, rest assured. Ping An's face looks rosy and nothing unusual. He is preparing to enter the palace to accompany the queen. Ping An said that her soul is becoming more solid and the lotus pond is withering, which means that she is getting closer to the body of a mortal. It means that she no longer relies on lotus flowers for survival, which is a good thing. That's good, peace, finally the pain is over, Mrs. Lin said with a smile, stroking her hands. Please take a rest, your eyelids can hardly be opened. If you don't take good care of yourself, how will you hold your grandson? How will you hold your granddaughter? Lin looked at Ayu. Sushui's biological parents are careless. As a grandmother, you should be more considerate. Don't look at your daughter-in-law. My daughter-in-law is not someone who would be jealous of my sister-in-law. Ayu glared and said something treasonous. Her favorite is Sui Sui. I also feel sorry for Sushui. She has both parents, and she often invites her two children over to play. The two children have too much. I just wish Sushui could be happier. It's a blessing for Brother Chuan to marry you. If he cheats on you one day, I won't spare her. I will drive him out myself. I only recognize you as a girl, not his son. Lin said with a serious face. Ayu nodded, she believed Lin could do it. Also believe in the righteous behavior of husband and wife. Yanchuan is an extremely self-disciplined person, and she trusts him. Since the news of Sushui's pregnancy spread, the people have become more and more excited. The child needs to eat hundreds of food and wear hundreds of clothes to raise him well, whether the queen dislikes it or not. This is our wish. Beijiamai, when the child is born, we will send the first crop of new rice. This is cloth. Someone placed a basket at the door of Yan's house, and every day someone would select the most exquisite materials from the house, wash them cleanly, and bring them over. Everyone knows that Lin will definitely make clothes for the little emperor. Lin refused numerous times, but the people ignored him. She had no choice but to accept it. Besides, this is indeed a custom among the people. A large basket of materials was collected at the door every day. She cut out small pieces from each piece of material, selected 10,000 pieces, and made a quilt for the child first. Wanjiyi, only Sushui's children are treated like this, right? It's almost a blessing to all the people. Oh, there's a lot of ingredients. Let's make 3 small quilts. You can use them interchangeably. There are still some wrinkles in them, but they are extremely clean, and Mrs. Lin doesn't mind them either. She had the cloth steamed and sterilized again. After all, they were used by babies and there could be no mistakes. Clean it several times for peace of mind. In the end, we made 3 quilts for thousands of families. With some remaining materials, I made a triangular talisman. Finally, I grabbed a handful of the rice that the people sent last time and put it in. The baby's small clothes and shoes, these close-fitting items, she directly used pure cotton fabrics made in her own cloth mill. Comfortable and breathable, you can feel more confident if you make it at home. Sauerkraut will be mature after 7 days. Lin then entered the palace carrying 2 small jars. Sushui was originally suffering from morning sickness, but she ate a big bowl of pickled cabbage mixed with oily residue sent by Mrs. Lin. Fearing that she would overeat, Mrs. Lin hurriedly stopped her. Later, the imperial kitchen used sauerkraut in a different way. Today I'll cook fish with pickled vegetables, and tomorrow I'll stew big bones with pickled vegetables, barely raising some meat. Since Sushui became pregnant, Fujuxiao has become extremely clingy. Almost wherever you go, you follow. During the 7-day New Year's holiday, he never left. After the holidays, he also reduced his political affairs and spent half of his time with Sushui. This old guy Zhou Chongguang has retired from office, and your brother has become the new chief minister. Now that he is watching, there is no mistake. Fujuxiao waved his hand. My brother is only in his 20s, is he too young to be the first assistant? Sushui asked. Fujuxiao shook his head. You have never seen your brother in court. He is in his 20s and has 50 years of experience. Even that old guy Zhou Chongguang obeys him. Yanchuan is really a genius. Having entered the dynasty only 6 or 7 years ago, the civil and military forces of the entire dynasty had no choice but to submit. Today is the day when the dean comes to ask for pulse, Fujuxiao asked when he saw the old dean coming. Yes, Sushui sat on the chair and stretched out her hand. The old dean's hair and beard have turned gray, and some time ago he was clamoring to retire and return to his hometown to retire. But now he refuses to leave. He has to watch the birth of the emperor's heir in person before returning to his hometown. Your Majesty, the heir to the throne, has been awaited by the whole court for more than 10 years. The pulse diagnosis took an extra long time this time. Fujuxiao was worried. But I saw the old dean stroking his beard and saying, some time ago, the moon was light, and I was not sure. Now it is certain. The queen's pregnancy is probably twins. The old dean was actually a little worried. The royal family was most worried about the twins. There was a precedent that if the queen gave birth to 2 royal sons, the weaker one would be drowned. Otherwise, disputes may easily arise. Fujuxiao glanced at him. The flowers bloom on the same stem, which is auspicious. I only have one wife, and twins are a blessing. As long as he is here, there will be no chaos in the throne. As for the dirty things about the twins in the Qingzhenhou mansion, it is even more impossible. The dean was relieved. Dai Viet was the emperor's voice. No one could control him when he spoke. Congratulations, Your Majesty, and congratulations to the Empress on the birth of twins. End of this chapter.